Hi, Year Nines. I'm making a video for you because we're not going to have a lesson next week due to the public holiday, and we had a lot of you missing our lesson due to swimming carnival, which is understandable, but we do want to get a little bit of a move on with our next task. So we did finish our bags off, and I'll have the room open for people to keep coming and finishing their bags off. Normally, we would be doing a really exciting lesson together on fabric properties and understanding what fabrics you could choose to make your skirt or shorts with. And I do want to get a move on with that because I'd like to place the order for the fabrics. So I'm actually going to do this little lecture style with you on the through a video so that you can have a bit of an idea where we're going and you can choose some fabrics. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about fabrics and their different properties today, and how you can, what fabrics are appropriate for you to choose for your garment. So I'm going to start by talking about fibre. Now, fibres are the first building blocks of creating the fabric. So we divide those into natural fibres or synthetic fibres. So natural fibres can come from plant or animal materials. So most common ones you'd hear about would be cotton, which comes from a plant and is then spun into threads. Other plant ones that are quite popular is linen, or flax, which is turned into linen. Then you also have a lot of bamboo fibre, which is becoming quite popular these days. And just a couple of years ago, I actually heard about some people creating fabrics using mushroom fibre. And it's almost quite a leathery fabric, which is really cool. Then you also have animal natural fibres. So these could be something like wool that's come from either sheep or an alpaca that's shorn and then is then spun into fine threads. Could be thicker threads, could be finer threads, to then create the fabric. You could have leather, which is obviously the skin of an animal. You could have silk, which is actually the cocoon of a silkworm that is made. So those are a lot of our natural fibres. Now, synthetic fibres are chemically based. You can often use both synthetic fibre and natural fibre together. You can have sort of a mixture of the two fibres to use the properties of both. Synthetic fibres, the key way to tell if something's synthetic or natural is that a natural fibre will burn, a synthetic fibre will melt. So if you have something, it's hard for me to demonstrate it on a video for you, but if you do have something that's highly synthetic, like this organza is very, very 100% synthetic, this will melt if it goes near a flame, as opposed to a natural fibre like this that will actually catch fire and burn. So that's a good thing to know if you're having someone be around fire. Some people say, oh, well, then you'd give them the synthetic so that it's not catching fire on them. But I would actually say, well, you don't really want it melting on top of them as soon as there's heat either. So sometimes, you need to balance those things and choose, what's the best fibre for this? So once you've got your fibre, usually in most cases, it's then spun into threads, whether it's your cotton, your flax, your wool, all those ones will be spun into threads. And then it's made into fabric by there's a couple of different ways, but the main ones I'm going to talk to you about are weaving it or knitting it. So I'm going to pick up this bit of hessian again. So this one's a really good one for you to see on the video, because you can really clearly see that there are threads going one way, going all the way down. That's your warp. And you've also got your threads going all the way across. That's your weft. Now, we also call these the grain and the cross grain. On a fabric like this, they're kind of interchangeable. There's not really a difference between your warp and your weft on that fabric. So you could use them either way, depending on how you need to fit your pattern piece in on the fabric. And they're very, very similar. You will get some woven fabrics that are that actually have a little bit of stretch in one direction. That's because they've used maybe some stretchy threads, some nylon threads, which is a synthetic fibre that stretches a lot. So they might have used some nylon threads while weaving, so it actually has a little bit of stretch. So the other one is knitting. So you've probably heard of people knitting a jumper, but you can get knitted fabrics as well. And there's a whole different variety of ways that they could be knitted, different thicknesses of the threads that are actually used initially to create different things and different patterns. But then you'll have your knit ones that are very stretchy. And these are made there's different versions, but generally it's an interlocking system rather than a weft threads and warp threads system. So you can get different compositions still of your knitted and woven fabrics. So even within woven fabrics, you can have a lighter weight weave like this. This is a very lightweight weave. It's using very fine threads. They're not super closely wound. Obviously they're not as loose as that one, but they're not woven together as tightly as some other ones. You can also get some slightly thicker woven fabrics like this one. This one's a drill fabric. The other one I held up before, this blue one, is called a poplin fabric. So a drill fabric is a little bit stiffer, a little bit thicker. It's got more threads in there and they're thicker threads as well. So that's the key ways that fabrics are made. There's a couple of other ones as well. I didn't bring any fabric of this to show you, but we can also, there is some behind me, but you won't really be able to see it that close. You can also felt a fabric. Now this is only done using wool and it has to be natural wool, so it can't be synthetic based wool. So that's actually where you're tangling the fibres together, so they don't even go through the process of turning them into threads. They mat and tangle them together, and we'll actually explore that a little bit after you've made your skirts or your shorts. You can also net and lace threads together to create this sort of different beautiful patterns in lace work or netting kind of work. So here's another example of that, of just a netted fabric like this. So once you've actually got, you kind of think, well, I can see a few different type fabrics there. You've got all those fibres and all those ways of making it. But you've also got other properties you could look at too. So I mentioned some of them already. You could talk about its stretch. So even a woven fabric could have a little bit of stretch to it. Knitted fabrics will always have some stretch to them, but some knitted fabrics might have, so I'll go back to this piece I had before. This knitted fabric has stretch one way, but not really much stretch the other way, barely any. As opposed to, I know I've got a piece around here, there it is, as opposed to this fabric that has, so you can imagine this in a swimsuit, this sort of spandexy fabric. This has lots and lots of stretch in any direction. So great for leotards and swimsuit kind of garments. The other thing you could look at is maybe a fabric's sheen. So sometimes people will see a fabric like this and say, oh, that's silk or that's satin. And sometimes they're right. Sometimes it might be silk or satin. Silk isn't always shiny. That's the sheen that's applied to the fabric. So this one, you might not be able to see the way the light's catching it, but does have a little bit of a sheen to it. But you can also get very synthetic fabrics that also have a sheen to it. So we call that is actually the satin. So a satin finish is what gives it the sheen. So you can have a very polyester-based satin, so polyester being a synthetic fibre, so a synthetic satin, or you could have a slightly more natural fibre with a satin. And you can normally tell there's a much higher quality when there's more natural fibres in it. You can even put a slight satin finish onto a cotton. So there's cotton sateen, which is a cotton that it's quite stiff, but it has a nice shine to it, used in a lot of dresses and skirts because it holds its shape quite well. Next one, so I've got them written on the board that I wanted to talk to you about, would be weight of your fabric. So you can have some fabrics that are very lightweight. So for example, the silks I just held up were very, very lightweight. This cotton is a fairly lightweight cotton. Oh, hang on, this one's a better one. So you've got this very, very lightweight cotton. This one has some texture on it as well. You might be able to make that out in the video. It'd be helpful if I was holding it the right way. You could also, here's another very lightweight fabric. This one I was going to show you in a moment too, because it's a little bit see-through, it's a little bit transparent. So this is a muslin fabric, very lightweight. You could also get heavier weight fabrics, like this one. So this is a woven wool that's been made into a bit of a tartan fabric, and it's actually woven to have that pattern. It's not printed on, it's woven in. So that's definitely a heavier weight, thicker fabric. You can also get fabrics that are thicker but still lighter. So this one is very thick and fluffy. This is called teddy bear fleece, but it's actually quite lightweight. It's not heavy to hold. You can get some fabrics that are very smooth and thin, but have a bit more weight to them. So this silky satin that I held up before, this has a little bit more weight to it than this one. And so it means it's going to drape a bit nicer, fall over the body a little bit nicer, as opposed to this one that isn't, might kind of fly out a little bit more. So you can look at the weight of a fabric. You could look at how smooth a fabric is. Its texture, it could be smooth, it could be fluffy, it could be very coarse, like that hessian I showed you before. It could be very matte, like the dress I'm wearing today is just a very matte cotton. So this is another sort of cotton poplin, but a print one. You could look at the transparency of the fabric. Most fabrics, when you hold them up to a strong light, will be a little bit see-through. So even a cotton that would be acceptable to wear for a garment, like this one that I have already shown you, if I held that up to a strong enough light, you would be able to see through it quite a lot. But once it's sort of on the body, it's not too see-through. But there are fabrics that are very see-through. I already showed you some organza. So organza is a very see-through fabric that has a bit of a shine, quite a strong sheen to it. It also is very stiff kind of fabric. It doesn't drape very well. So this one, if you're sort of wanting something that's going to sit out and hold its shape, that's a good fabric to use. But if you want something see-through that's very drapey and smooth, this one is a chiffon. So that's very, very see-through. It could be used as an overlayer of something or have multiple layers of it. But it's a lot more flowy and drapey, the chiffon. I did already show you the muslin, which is slightly coarser than the chiffon, holds its shape a little bit more, but still very airy and summery feeling. And I've just dropped a piece. This is Georgette, which is very similar to chiffon. They're often confused, but it's a little bit thicker. You'll see it's not quite as see-through. Sometimes you'll find dresses that are, or skirts and things that are made in just a double layer of Georgette, so they're really not too see-through. Or they might have one backing layer with them as well. So it's got a similar flow, not quite as soft, but it is a little bit more opaque, not quite as transparent. So the one other one I've mentioned a couple of times would be a fabric's drape, and that's a good one for you guys to think about, whether a fabric flows and falls or whether a fabric really holds its shape. So something like this netting or this tulle is going to hold its shape really well. If I put this one on my head, well, it's just going to fall. It's going to flow around. So thinking about, if you're wanting a skirt that's going to sit out a little bit more A-line, having something that holds its shape is a little bit better. If you're wanting something that's going to just fall and flow, then having something that does have more drape is really good. So I do want to talk quickly about your fabric choices for your skirts and shorts. So you're going to get to design a simple skirt or a simple pair of shorts. We will talk next lesson about the restrictions. There's a couple of restrictions you have around that. I'll put some things on canvas for that as well if you're wanting to start looking into this. So you can use most non-stretch fabrics for these. Email me if you're not sure about a fabric, but any kind of cotton, any woven cotton is great. And one of the main ones we use, people who want to use a thicker weight fabric will often go for cotton drills or broadcloth, which is, I did have a piece here. Yeah, this one I think might be a broadcloth. It's like the drill. It's quite sturdy, but it's a little bit softer. So that's quite a common one that's used. Poplin, which is another very, very thin, lightweight cotton, is quite often used. I also get some people use different silky, satiny fabrics. So normally we can only really afford the polyester-based satins, but there are lots of prints that come in those. I've had a couple of people who want to do shorts that are a bit more pajama-based shorts, and they've used flannelette. I think I've even had one or two use fleece, which is a little bit different because it does have some stretch, but I have allowed that one as well. So they're the main ones that we tend to use. So I'm going to put some things up on Canvas for you to have a look at Spotlight's website and sort of recommend a few places. And I'd really love it if you could start to look at the fabric you would like to use and whether you're going to have, say, a longer skirt or a shorter skirt or a short, little shorts or shorts that sort of come down to the knee or a bit below the knee. So I'd love you to actually think about those things, because if I can get the fabric order in before our next lesson, it will really put us in a good place to move on a bit quicker. So look for Canvas for options and for what my recommendations are. But I hope that quick tutorial is a bit of a whirlwind of fabrics, but I hope that quick tutorial gave you a little bit of an idea of the sorts of fabrics you might like to use. But feel free to ask me any questions. Thanks, Unines. Bye.